But please, I'm opening the floor and any question and comment.
Thank you very much. Any comprehensive law on data protection in Finland, if you have the law? That's just a question. Because I know there are some countries which has made...
Actually, Mr. Mamby just mentioned data protection. The law that he referred to in the UK, we've moved far past that because we don't just look at data protection now, we look at data management. Our Data Protection Commissioner is no longer a Data Protection Commissioner, he's the Information Commissioner. And the reason for that is that there have been stages where there's been one extreme where people say you should share data and the other extreme where people say all data should be protected. And neither of those is tenable. I spent some time when I was police minister telling the police and local authorities that they must share information. They must share it responsibly, but they must share that information, because if they fail to share it appropriately, following the rules for data protection, then they were wrong. So you could never say the safe thing is not to share information or the safe thing is to share information. It has to be, you have to make a responsible judgment about the public interest and the individual interest in relation to any data, and therefore has to be judged properly. And that's why we've moved from a sheer data protection approach to one that I think is much more appropriate in the information age. The second thing is that Mr. Kasvi said that the Finnish National Information Society strategy does not mention civil rights at all, and I take it by implication doesn't mention privacy at all. I wonder whether it mentions crime or whether it mentions governance, because many of our documents don't mention privacy or rights, but they don't mention the crime or the difficult issues either. And I would suggest that you cannot discuss these things in isolation. You can't have a discussion about privacy without discussing threats. You can't discuss enterprise without discussing protection. You can't separate these things. We have to have them in the same silo. The third point is the lack of interest by politicians is absolute every sort. Then we have to be considering them like arteries and veins, and the health of the whole body depends on the way that we look at that. And unless we talk in those terms, our colleagues will say it's about the technology and we don't therefore need to bother about it because we're not interested in the technology. I question the suggestion that democracy equals privacy and freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is very important, and that leads to an absolute right to anonymity, but I think that's a topic that does need 2 hours in the bar, at the very least. I'm certain that legislation is not the answer. When you mentioned the Finnish law that was defective because it only referred to telephones and not to texting, that is because the legislation was technology specific. And the point that was made this morning very powerfully again was that if something is wrong in the offline world, it is wrong in the online world as well. And I think we need to, again, it's the same point as that of language. We need to stop regarding the internet as a separate world where values and principles don't apply. The same principles, the same values, and therefore the same legislative principles need to apply. I certainly agree that data collection is not the simple answer to many of the problems to which people seek to apply it, but there are data collection issues which we need to address. And my final point is to agree wholeheartedly with what I think was your final point. It's not the technology. Bill Clinton didn't say but could have said, it's not the technology, it's the people, stupid.
Person used to seek reparation.
Because originally in Finland, stealing of electricity was not a crime either, because the law said that that crime is defined by that you take somebody else's physical, material possession. So you were able to steal electricity without punishment, because it was not illegal according to Finnish law. Of course, later on the law was rewritten. But this same thing goes now to this identity thing. And this last question, what to do about laws, they are more focused on protecting the privacy information that concerns people's privacy, and we have this data protection ombudsman. The trouble with data protection ombudsman is that each new law concerning information society seems to give him more tasks, more things to supervise. For example, filtering lists and stuff like that that were not originally in his agenda, and we have not been giving him resources to take care of all these new kind of things. For example, there are things that are on his desk include, for example, nurses that have looked into health records of their neighbors and stuff like that. And that did Finnish Information Society strategy mention crimes. Actually not so much even the crimes were there. It was more about broadband, how to build a better broadband to Finland, and how to create an environment where you can have more electronic services and so on and so on. It was very, let's say, it was very technology oriented, not society or person oriented at all. And then there were these, how to address these risks, what to actually do. So should we just raise our hands up and say that, okay, internet, we cannot do anything about the internet? Of course not. Let's take, for example, child protection. We have tried, for example, filtering the contents of the web. We know that that does not work. We know that it's only kind of its filters. There were all too many false positives and false negatives. It's a dead end. We have tried national filtering lists, and then when we looked into them, we saw that, oh no, there were a lot of things that were totally legal there. Actually, this list that was supposed to stop Finnish pedophiles from accessing child pornography actually made it easier to locate child pornography from the web. It was very easy to analyze the web traffic so that by anybody, so that you can see what pages are being blocked, so that if I, for example, would want to start my own child pornography service, I would actually go into these filters and use them as my reference material. So what should we do? I think first of all, when we fight child pornography, all the successful strikes against that industry have been based on traditional police work. Getting inside those rings, traditional investigation methods. And the other one is, when you talk about child protection, I think what we need to create is a trusting relationship between parents and their children. Because at the moment, children are growing themselves in the web. And there are many reasons to that, but parents now react totally illogically when their children have problems in the web. When their child comes to say that, oh no, somebody is stalking me in the web, what do parents do? They say that they limit the child's computer use. And that's punishment worse than house arrest. So as a result, children do not trust their parents. They do not tell them if they have problems. And that's what we should start from that end. Start to so that parents and children will trust each other, so that their parents could again be adults, even in the virtual world, because at the moment they are not. Sorry, I took a long time.
Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to Honorable Vega.
Okay, después del 14M en Madrid, han aparecido nuevos términos como el Smart Moves, las multitudes inteligentes. El uso de estas nuevas herramientas está cambiando al mundo, lo mencionaban en el caso de la elección de Obama, y las diferencias que hay entre alguien que no sabe para qué sirve la tecnología y quien sabe cómo usar la tecnología. Lo más preocupante para nosotros es cómo blindar las bases de datos, cómo proteger los datos que en un momento dado pueden ser utilizadas por las grandes transnacionales para su uso personal. Insisto en que mucha de la solución a los problemas de la seguridad en Internet tiene que ver con la educación. Si nosotros acompañamos a nuestros niños, nuestros chicos a saber cómo utilizar la tecnología y cómo protegerse ante esta nueva revolución tecnológica desde una edad temprana, podemos asegurar que será menos el efecto que tendremos en un futuro, el efecto negativo que tendremos en un futuro con el uso de estas nuevas tecnologías. Es decir, si nosotros sabemos cómo y explicamos cómo utilizar el Internet desde una etapa temprana, cómo proteger y cómo no dar nuestra información, podemos hacer un acompañamiento de los pequeños, podremos avanzar en estos temas de seguridad. Ahora se presentan nuevas tecnologías como es la georreferenciación de los dispositivos móviles, se presentan el uso de las cámaras de vigilancia, como decía Mr. Casby, y viene el uso acompañado de toda la información que nosotros proporcionamos a través de Internet. Yo pienso que con educación podríamos resolver el problema. Este problema es un problema transversal que se puede resolver con la educación. Eso es lo que yo diría.
Thank you very much. It is interesting that the end of the two discussion, the responses are actually on education. One side, the education of children. On the other side is the education of parents as well. So I think that here we have a common basis, a common ground. Let me just respond to one comment that actually raised by our colleague from Tanzania about the UN and the international treaty. There is first of all, I can only represent the Secretariat of the UN, and we do know that there is a sense of the need for an international treaty, although different position of different countries, of course, member states, have to be taken into account. So we will only reach a level of a treaty when countries, member states, will be negotiating those kind of issues. But there is also this the idea that this morning actually it was raised by one participant that is that really a need for an international treaty, or there is a need for national laws that can really take into account and be implemented at national level and enforced at national level in a good manner? Is that really a need for an international treaty, or maybe there is a need for model laws in the sense that many countries may take advantage of some sort of guidance on how to legislate, because we have to be very frank. In many countries, there is lack of knowledge about many of these issues also, not only among parliamentarians, but also at the government level, civil society level. In many countries, we know that civil society is actually the driving force behind, information society. So this is something that I have no response. I just want to raise the fact that there is also the international treaty may not be the solution, may actually be just one piece of a broader universe. Now I would kindly ask Honorable Michael if maybe at the podium could read the contribution of Lord McIntosh, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay? Oh, yes. Wonderful.
Can I first say that Lord Mackintosh, Andrew Mackintosh, wanted me to give his apology. It was not his choice that he is not here. The Council of Europe decided that their delegates would not attend, and the tickets of those who were to come were cancelled. So Andrew Mackintosh had no choice but to remain in London, and I can tell you he's very angry about that because he wanted to be here and he wanted to take part. I know that also applies to members of the European Parliament, because it was the Commission that decided to stop the travel, and I know that members of the European Parliament are angry that they are not here. I imagine that our Indian colleagues would have every justification for being angry, but I wanted people to know that it's not parliamentarians that withdrew. They were prevented from being here. I think it's an absolute disgrace, and will say so at every opportunity, and I'm glad of having the opportunity in making it clear that Andrew Mackintosh was prevented from coming. It's not that he didn't intend or wish to be here with us. Now, I'm not Andrew Mackintosh, I'm the wrong shape, and I may need to demand a right of reply to what he said. I don't mean that, it's a good contribution, but I will read his words. Andrew Mackintosh is the chairman of the subcommittee on the media of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. He's a member of the British House of Lords. And he says this: "The right to privacy was the title of a scholarly article in the Harvard Law Review of 1890, written by Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis, which proclaimed such a right in view of the rapid extension of the print media that sometimes published pictures of private individuals. More than 100 years later, any one of us in this room can take pictures with a mobile phone or digital camera and put them into the World Wide Web. When we speak of the Web 2.0, we have in mind this kind of communications network which allows everyone to publish and share text, sound and images. Chat rooms, blogs, wikis, open collaborative networks and the like are on the rise and lead to marvellous international contacts and cooperation at individual level. So far, media content has been produced by journalists and media staff with editorial responsibility and ethical codes of conduct. As an ex-journalist, I'm not so sure about that. But what are the standards for the common users of the internet, whether old or young, educated or not, wherever they lived in the world, and the World Wide Web? Do we want to limit this new and seemingly endless freedom in cyberspace? The World Wide Web is often characterized as a wonderful space which is open to everyone and creates its own new rules. Such glorifications are probably naive because the technology may be extremely good, but we human beings using this technology are still the same. The right to privacy, or the right to respect for private and family life, home and correspondence, is a fundamental human right under Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. The United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights guarantees in Article 17 that no one should be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his privacy, family, home or correspondence. These provisions not only prohibit states from interfering in this right of individuals, they also require states to enact laws that protect privacy against interference by other private individuals. National parliaments must therefore fulfill their role as legislator. But the technology is typically too fast and complex to be easily understood by legislators around the world. Privacy is recognized differently around the world. In the UK, privacy is part of the Human Rights Act, but otherwise not strongly protected. In France, an infringement of privacy is a criminal offence. In Germany, even a right to informational self-determination has been recognized, which allows everyone to know and control personal information stored by third parties, whether they are private or public entities. A harmonization of such laws is not feasible and probably not desirable at a global level, but the cited UN and Council of Europe texts provide for a common and universal minimum standard. He goes on to offer some questions saying, I cannot attempt to provide the answers to all the questions concerning privacy on Web 2.0, but I draw attention to a few relevant issues which may serve as a basis for further discussions. And there are 10 of these. 1. Privacy laws should apply in a technology-neutral manner because in principle it does not make a difference whether your private picture is published in a newspaper or on the internet. 2. It may make a difference whether your privacy was infringed for commercial purposes, for instance by a newspaper or website trying to increase sales, rather than by a private person with no financial interests, for instance publishing it in a chat room. 3. A publication on the internet may stay on Web 2.0 for an indefinite time, while a printed publication will be out of circulation after a few days, and pictures broadcast on television will be available only for a matter of moments. Images of child pornography victims, on the other hand, have notoriously been circulated widely and repeatedly on the internet, and the victims or their families could do little about it. 4. Web 2.0 allows everyone to open up his or her own privacy, for example by publishing personal data or even naked pictures. Can the right to privacy be waived, for instance by minors? Does human dignity prohibit a total waiver of privacy? 5. For many it has become normal to Google persons by their names before they meet them. Commercial firms are offering profiles of individuals via the internet, ranging from professional backgrounds to criminal registers, from private information to family and business relations, from birth notices to death notices. Are individuals an open source, or should they be protected? Does anything published on the internet become part of the public domain, or is it still private? 6. The World Wide Web allows us to act anonymously or use different names and even identities. On the other hand, each move on the web leaves an electronic trace. Anonymity may be a safeguard for one's privacy, but it may also pose a higher risk of criminal activity. In any case, the traceability of users is much greater. Does privacy include a right to remain anonymous on the internet? A technology-neutral approach may also be helpful in this case. On a physical highway, you are not obliged to identify yourself unless you violate the law applicable on that highway or pursue an activity with potential liabilities. The same may be applied to the data highway. 7. The right to privacy includes the right to secrecy of correspondence. Emails are not specific to Web 2.0. On the contrary, the Web 2.0 follows the notion of open accessible communications. Nevertheless, one must respect the secrecy of correspondence or communications if the author so wishes. This right is, of course, not absolute, but can be restricted for the prevention of crime, for example. 8. Since users of Web 2.0 create voluntarily their own virtual spaces and realities, they can also create additional social or ethical rules for their relations amongst themselves. Those self-imposed rules may be stricter in protecting the privacy of their users. The latter is particularly helpful for chat rooms, for minors. 9. The right to privacy applies not only to individuals but also to legal entities such as commercial firms. This is particularly relevant with regard to client and business information of such firms. The Web 2.0 may open up new opportunities for everyone to start their own business, and commercial privacy may be worth a lot of money. And finally, 10. Despite its inherent openness, the Web 2.0 may be affected by intrusions and hacking. This is regarded as a criminal offence under the International Cybercrime Convention produced by the Council of Europe. Andrew goes on, as a Council of Europe representative, I would like to refer also to the other relevant instruments developed by this organisation. You may judge for yourself how far they could also apply on your continent. I think if I just summarise this, people may be able to have the website references and follow them afterwards. But basically, he refers to the Parliament Assembly the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council for Europe, which adopted in 1998 a resolution on the right to privacy. That's Resolution 1165. That tried to define the right and, for example, proposed that it should be possible to take an action under civil law to enable a victim to claim possible damages for invasion of privacy. And it also recommended that the media should be encouraged to create their own guidelines for publication. I just add that I wouldn't just leave it to the media, but there we are. He also refers to the potential of self-regulatory bodies. In 1999, the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe adopted Recommendation 99-5, Guidelines for the Protection of Individuals on the Internet, which list a number of precautionary principles for users and ethical standards for Internet service providers. And the written text, there is the link for that. He also refers to the Convention for the Protection of Individuals with regard to automatic processing of personal data, which is open for signature by non-European states, and again gives the reference. And finally, he says the ultimate yardstick for Europe, of course, is Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Privacy cases involving Web 2.0 have obviously not found their way as yet to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, but I am sure that some will do so in the future. Finally, his conclusion, he asks, where does this leave us? And he says this: I believe parliamentarians should take steps to learn more about privacy problems on the World Wide Web, version 1.0 and 2.0. This can best be done by comparing international ideas and experiences and learning from good and bad experiences of other countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from the, we have one comment from the back, microphone, yes.
Eu sou senador da República do Brasil.
I will translate here piece by piece, okay?
Okay, thank you
I think
very
it
much.
might be easier. He's a senator from Brazil.
So, first of all, we welcome the delegation of Brazil, if I understand well, has arrived. Thank you for coming almost without sleeping. So, thank you.
Com certeza, eu faço grande esforço juntamente com os outros parlamentares e a delegação brasileira para estarmos aqui. Cada parlamento, cada estado precisa focar nas suas reais necessidades e na realidade cultural do seu povo para poder construir a sua legislação.
Every state, every nation should really focus on their reality, their cultural reality, to see their possibilities.
No Brasil, no Senado da República, eu presido uma CPI, uma Comissão Parlamentar de Inquérito, chamada CPI de Enfrentamento e Combate à Pedofilia.
In Brazil, I'm the chairman of a committee related to combating pedophiles.
E penso que o sigilo da internet, a ética do sigilo, deve ser focada no cidadão de bem, mas não podemos nos esquecer de que os criminosos, eles estão em busca exatamente das brechas que existem para cometer os seus crimes.
That we should be attentive to normal citizens, but the focus, of course, should be in those who might try to use the breaches.
Penso que existem três vieses a nós observarmos. Primeiro, a velocidade da internet precisa que nós não nos permite fazer plano a longo prazo para poder educarmos a sociedade. A sociedade avança bem com relação à velocidade da internet muito devagar na questão da educação.
Two things he wants to comment, that the internet goes very fast and it really makes long planning complicated.
Precisamos entender o que podemos fazer agora com a velocidade da internet, nesse momento, principalmente na proteção dos que precisam ser protegidos, a sociedade de bem.
So we should see how we can protect what is really important, which is civil society.
O mundo hoje tem a Google, que se recusa a cumprir a lei nos países onde ela chegou.
And we have Google, which seems to is unable or does not want to follow these new rules.
E eles dizem, o nosso servidor está na América, só cumprimos lei na América.
We only do the law is only followed in America.
O Brasil é o maior consumidor de Orkut do mundo, um viés de dinheiro, de negócio, de business da Google.
And Brazil is the greatest consumer of Orkut, which is a social network.
O segundo é a Índia, onde nós estamos.
And India is the second one.
E o Brasil é um dos maiores consumidores de pedofilia, de abuso de criança.
And Brazil is one of the biggest consumers of child abuse pornography.
E o avanço da internet no mundo não nos deu a possibilidade de que avançássemos com a lei com a mesma velocidade.
And the speed of the internet has not allowed the law to follow at the same speed.
E eu então, como presidente da CPI, uma comissão no Brasil tem poder de justiça e poder de polícia.
As the president of the Parliamentary Commission, I have the power of police.
Eu convidei a Google para vir ao Senado, ao Parlamento, para discutir conosco a questão dos alvos do site de relacionamento, os perfis fechados, identificados como de pedofilia e de abuso de criança no Brasil.
And invited Google to explain the closed personal profiles in Orkut, where many pedophiles were acting.
E eles mentiram para nós.
They
Disseram,
lied to
nós vamos, e não foram.
They said they would go and they didn't.
Então eu os convoquei e mandei a Polícia Federal ir buscá-los.
He ordered the federal police to actually bring them to the parliament.
Eles vieram.
And they came.
E a partir desse momento, naquele dia, eu quebrei o sigilo no Senado do Brasil de 3.264 álbuns fechados de abuso de criança.
And that way he managed to open 3,276 profiles that were restricted viewing.
E com a abertura do sigilo, encontrei pedófilos do mundo inteiro.
And I found pedophiles from all over the world.
Com a abertura daqueles discos rígidos que nos foram entregues pela Google, encontrei todo o sofrimento e toda a lama imposta às crianças abusadas no mundo.
And in those hard disks Google gave to us, I saw all the dirt and the worst of the suffering of children from all over the world.
Encontrei 874 pedófilos do Brasil e 126 da Índia, que é o segundo consumidor.
I found 874 pedophiles from Brazil and 126 from India.
E aí tínhamos um grande problema para resolver, porque não tínhamos legislação para poder enfrentar o pedófilo que tinha no seu computador, que detinha a posse de material pornográfico no Brasil.
And we lacked legislation to act upon people who actually had pornography in their computers.
Do que resultou isso? Resultou um termo de ajuste de conduta, pela primeira vez assinado com um país do mundo. A Google foi obrigada a assinar com o Brasil um termo de ajuste de conduta com a sociedade, com a justiça brasileira.
And in that way, Google was the first country obliged to sign a term of agreement with the Brazilian law.
Num segundo momento, quebrei mais 19.000 páginas para encontrar 8.000 pedófilos.
And then he broke 19,000 more profiles and found 8,000 more pedophiles.
Há 4 dias atrás, o presidente Lula sancionou uma lei do parlamento a partir dessa quebra do sigilo, criminalizando a posse e tipificando condutas de abuso de criança.
4 days ago, President Lula signed a law in which the possession of this pornography has become a crime.
O presidente da Google no Brasil foi promovido para a América Latina.
And the president of Google Brazil was promoted to the president of Latin America.
Se obrigando a assinar o mesmo termo de ajuste de conduta com o restante da América Latina.
And obliged to sign the same agreement term as a whole for Latin America.
E imagino agora que a Índia, o segundo consumidor de Orkut do mundo, deva exigir para a Índia o mesmo termo de ajuste de conduta assinado com o Brasil, que deve ser assinado com o mundo, porque o servidor está na América, mas o pedófilo está no Brasil, está na Índia, em qualquer parte do mundo. As crianças abusadas são nossas e o dinheiro que eles ganham é no nosso país.
And I think India should get the same agreement from Google, because even though the servers in the United States, the crimes happen all over the world and the children are abused all over the world.
Agora, desenvolvemos uma legislação para enfrentar o crime cibernético no Brasil. Estamos criando o tipo penal no Código Penal brasileiro.
And now we are doing reforming the legislation to make a specific crime.
Cidadão condenado por pedofilia, abuso de criança no Brasil.
And the
30
citizen that commits a pedophile or does this kind of pornography,
30 anos, sem progressão de regime, rastreamento eletrônico até a morte.
30 years possibility of a term, and he will be electronically surveyed until he dies.
Penso que a sociedade deve fazer sua parte.
Society should do its part.
O parlamento e o governo vigente devem orientar, isso é, produzir prevenção para a sociedade.
The government should be in the prevention
Ou
area.
seja, essa educação para a família é educar os filhos.
And this education for the family is educating the children.
Mas o papel do parlamento é produzir a lei,
Parliament has to produce the law,
é produzir o instrumento
the instrument,
para dar à sociedade, para que a justiça se use o instrumento produzido pelo parlamento.
so that justice can use the legislation created by Parliament.
Aí então nós podemos trocar informações, sim.
So then we can exchange information.
O que vai bem num país, o que vai bem no outro país.
So we know what actually works in every country.
Copiarmos as leis uns dos outros onde essa lei dá certo.
And then to copy the laws that actually work.
Para que possamos, a partir do instrumento da lei, protegermos a nossa sociedade.
And to use these tools, legal tools, to protect society.
Propusemos à América agora, e também ao Japão, as embaixadas brasileiras no mundo inteiro, a partir de uma lei que vamos votar agora.
And they had talks with Japan and the United States that they would make available through all Brazilian embassies the law that is being that was signed in Brazil.
De todos os documentos exigidos para se dar um visto a um cidadão para entrar no Brasil.
All the documents necessary to give a visa to someone going to Brazil.
Se exigirá a ficha penal.
They would demand the criminal record.
Qualquer cidadão que já abusou de criança, está respondendo o processo, está sendo investigado por abuso de crianças, não receberá visto para entrar no Brasil.
So anyone that has already a criminal record or that might be under investigation would not get a visa to Brazil.
E penso que esse instrumento de lei, se feito no mundo inteiro, nós então fazemos recuar os pedradores de crianças.
And if this kind of legislation was put in place all over the world, we would make these child predators make them withdraw.
E desses pedradores que têm um pouco de instrução, eles navegam na internet, no site de relacionamento, seja MySpace, Facebook, Bebo, Orkut, os sites de relacionamento, a sala de bate-papo da internet no mundo inteiro.
And these predators who are very well educated that circulate in all kinds of social networks and forums.
Eles se falam, eles se relacionam.
They speak to each other, they have relationships.
Por isso aplaudo com um pouco de tristeza no meu coração.
That's why I applaud with a lot of sadness.
O fato de tantos parlamentares não poderem ter vindo hoje aqui.
The fact that so many parliamentarians could not come.
Mas penso que nós parlamentares somos os grandes devedores da sociedade.
And that we parliamentarians are the ones supposed to protect society.
Porque o instrumento da lei tem que ser criado por nós.
Because we have to create the laws.
Para oferecer segurança à sociedade.
To offer society protection.
Desculpe ter me alongado. Muito obrigado.
Sorry for extending myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Employees are the innocent hackers, you know. These are the innocent hackers, employees, because they are the one who can access somebody's without information. So employees are the innocent hackers, apart from those made hackers. So we need also to educate the employees on the whole question of privacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have first row here.
The challenges of travel and distance, and I think it shows enormous commitment, not just to be our host last year, but now to be with us here today. So thank you for that. I just wanted to agree with one of the final points, not go into some of the detail of the history that's recommended, that we as legislators have a responsibility for the protection of the public and introducing law that works. But please, can I repeat a quote that I gave this morning from Gibbon in Decline and Fall, which is that laws rarely prevent what they forbid. and that in relation to child abuse, we had two excellent contributions this morning from people who are expert who are not with us this afternoon because they're in other events. And I would suggest looking at those contributions. And I think I would like to underline the point that we all have a responsibility as parliamentarians to make sure that our legislation in country is right. When it comes to the international dimension, I suspect that international law is too difficult a concept, and the concept that will work is that of partnership involving parliamentarians as well as governments, as well as industry and as well as civil society to create the way forward. And that, I thought, was the most powerful concept that was explored during the course of the morning session. I think that is not inconsistent with the contribution from our colleague, but I thought it was worth making the point that there is a link between the discussion this morning and the contribution he made this afternoon. And it's by putting together the issues of privacy and the protection of citizens that you start to get to answers. And frankly, I think the answer is the IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, if we can really make it work. Thank you.
And now we can all verify its existence. Even though these social networks, the Brazilian delegation referred to, are only the tip of the iceberg, because the hardcore of that industry resides in darknets where it is very difficult to penetrate without penetrating the network of those people. And it also, this Brazilian delegation's contribution also underlines the importance of international cooperation when we fight against child pornography. For example, when the Finnish police created a list of suspected child pornography sites, many of them were actually in the European Union. Many were in the United States and other countries where child pornography is illegal. And the Finnish police did not contact those countries. And that was something that was one of the saddest parts of that debate we had in Finland, because that filtering list did not work as it was supposed to. But another thing here is that as legislators we have to be very careful when we talk about these tools, because when a tool exists there is a temptation to use it elsewhere, where people are not do not agree as well that this is necessary. For example, this child pornography filtering list in Finland, as soon as it was implemented, there were requests that it should also be used to block internet gambling sites, internet pharmacies and other sites like that. And that temptation we have to be able to resist. And finally, I would like to change the note a bit, because this discussion, as in many other forums, has focused on problems and negative sides of the Internet. If the Internet were such a negative world, such a terrible place as it sounds, we would of course wouldn't be using it at all. We would have banned it altogether. So we also have to remember that there are many benefits and many great things and many beautiful things there, and also discuss how to best benefit from these positive opportunities, how to best to use them in our own societies.
Coincidimos con el presidente de la delegación de Brasil sobre la educación. Hemos visto en nuestros países, sobre todo en México, un país emergente, en donde la penetración de Internet todavía es demasiado baja. Probablemente estemos preocupados por otro tipo de problemas y no por los problemas asociados con la gente que está teniendo acceso a Internet. Sobre todo los niños. El 70% de los 20 millones de internautas que hay en Internet, el 70% está entre los 14 y los 25 años, y hemos detectado una brecha generacional en el uso de estas tecnologías. Entonces, mientras los padres no educan a los hijos, no tenemos un control parental, los hijos van aprendiendo de lo nuevo que hay en Internet, y a veces los niños saben más que los padres, y entonces ahí tenemos ese gran problema, ese reto. Yo considero que el Internet es una oportunidad de crecimiento, de competitividad, pero debemos de tener herramientas, legislación al respecto para poder proteger de los retos que tiene el uso de esta tecnología. Acaba de comentar que nosotros nos ha llevado año y medio implementar la Ley para el Desarrollo y la Sociedad de la Información, que incluye temas que tienen que ver con la educación desde la edad temprana en este tipo de tecnologías en la currícula. Es un reto en donde se ha involucrado a la industria, al gobierno, al poder judicial, al poder legislativo. Entonces ya ha sido complicado conjuntar a todas estas visiones en una sola dirección. Afortunadamente lo hemos hecho y debemos estar preparados para los nuevos retos. Agradezco su intervención, coincido completamente con el colega de Brasil. Gracias.
Of the session, or is there any other questions or comment from the floor? Well, then I think we can conclude the session. I just would like to say a few words. First of all, that although we had some withdrawal from the last moment, after all, we have few delegations of parliamentarians here today. There is, of course, Finland, Mexico, there is the UK, Brazil, Burundi, in representation of the Pan-African Parliament as well. Tonight we know that a delegation for Bulgaria will be in town, and we hope that also that South Africa will be present with a delegation of parliamentarians. As you know, we have tried, although at the last moment, but we managed to have a space, another space for discussion among parliamentarians that will take place on the 5 December, between 11 and 12:30 on the second floor, room 3. So in this will be a smaller room. We will not have interpretation, but we will manage, because we will, between the staff of the United Nations, we will try to make sure that all languages will be covered. So I hope that this meeting on the 5th can address one of the issues that came out strongly in the morning, in the afternoon, and which is the partnership and cooperation. We call the meeting Interparliamentary Cooperation on the Information Society. And I think we have seen this morning and this afternoon there were mention of not only, of course, interparliamentary cooperation per se, but also the cooperation between government, parliaments, civil society and industry. We're not limiting by the title the topic, but there is also a need of engaging parliaments and parliamentarians, legislators, into information society related issues. We heard from the Finnish delegation, from the UK delegation, that not many parliamentarians actually in their own parliaments are engaged into information society issues. But it will be inevitable, and the more and more we advance into the information society, and more we progress and we, into this field, that parliamentarians will have to face either way this issue. So another point that I would like to raise is that this morning we had a very good discussion, and with the intervention also of the delegation of Brazil this afternoon, on child pornography, child protection and abuse, particularly in the information society, of course. And this can be really a topic that we could explore also in the future if we can engage parliamentarians. This is a topic that is across borders, and there are we can safely put everybody around the table on this issue because this is a shared concern in all countries. Other issues like Web 2.0 and the future of the Internet could be also interesting to be addressed because of the future, because I think parliamentarians, as you said, have a responsibility, travel long distances and show solidarity also to our host, the Indian government. Thank you very much.